Staytreat 2020 by You Define Wellness. I am Sonia Sullins. I'm the owner of the Disrupt to Discover method, where I help you to disrupt limited thinking and mainstream beliefs to discover how to lose belly fat, brain fog, and burnout, and find your Zazazoo. And I am your host for this session. This is a life skill building session titled Self-Healing Through the Body's Innate Intelligence with John Karis of Quantum Health Limited. John Karis is a certified body talk practitioner who has been practicing body talk for over 10 years. Through his work, he helps clients release physical pain, such as injuries, chronic pain, health conditions, emotional pain, such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, and more, and heal relationships, improve their career, and advance their personal development. His transformational sessions connect with the deeper aspects of the body, mind's intelligence as his talents of intuitive insight combine with his training to heal and change the direction of one's life. Through more than 40 years of training and practicing in various consciousness-based modalities, John has come to a deep understanding of the mind-body-spirit connection. From his undergraduate studies in psychology and human behavior, and teaching and practicing transcendental meditation worldwide through the Maharishi Foundation, learning the ancient shamanic practices of the indigenous cultures of the Americas, to studying extensively with John Veltheim, the founder of Body Talk. He also offers healing shamanic journeys, leads plant medicine trips to the Peruvian Amazon, and teaches transcendental meditation. He is based out of Colorado and offers sessions both in person and video calls. Welcome, John. We're turning it over to you.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you. Well, good morning, and thank you for being here on this Staytreat. It's a real pleasure. My presentation today is going to be talking about the body's ability to self-heal through a term that's commonly used in all forms of medicine, which refers to the body's inner intelligence or the innate intelligence. As Sonia covered in that very lengthy bio, I work out of Lakewood and work with essentially your inner doctor. And that's what I'd like to talk about today, that the body has the ability to self-heal. And in order to understand that, I thought I would talk a little bit about how we understand the body and also how we understand the mind, because these two go together. Most often in alternative medicine, you'll hear the term body-mind or mind-body, and it's because there's a very intimate link between these two. So I think the first thing to understand is that when we think of ourselves, someone asks you, who are you? We don't say, well, I'm my body. I'm 6'2", I'm 185 pounds, I work here, etc. We're more than that, right? We're not just skin and bones and organs. There's more to us than that. There's our mental aspect, the mind, the emotions, the memory, intellectual functioning, all those parts. The body, though, is the material or the physical aspect of who we are. And mind is the non-material or abstract aspect of who we are. And these two are very intimately linked together. In fact, they're inseparable. They're actually a spectrum from material, decreasingly non-material, to finer and finer and finer and finer levels. So what do I mean by finer and finer levels? If we look at the body, I'd like you to just think a minute about your body. So when you look at your body, if you hold your hands out, you see a physical structure, right? Or if you look at your torso, you see a physical structure. Within that, there are component parts, right? There are smaller, more refined parts. So within the body's made up of various kinds of organs and body parts and systems, right? That's one level. On another level, our body, those organs are, what are they made of? They're made out of tissues. And what are tissues made out of? Tissues are made out of cells. Sonia, if I want, let me just ask to put this on, can I put something on screen share?
Yeah, if you toggle your cursor toward the bottom of your screen, you should see a green share
Oh
button.
yeah, okay.
And if you click on that, it will bring up your options. So click on the screen you want, which will be your PowerPoint. Then down in the lower right-hand corner will be another share button. Click on that and it will pop
Okay.
it up.
All right, thank you.
I'll let you know when we can see it.
Okay. Okay, I'm afraid I don't want to take more time of the viewers to do this. My apologies. I'll just go ahead and explain without the slides because it's going to take too much time to try to get this on. So anyway, what we were talking about was understanding our body, and that the body is built in levels, right? From the gross manifest, where we look at our hands, what we see in the mirror would be the gross manifest, but that gross manifest on the outside is composed of layers, and those layers are body parts, which can be organs or muscles or bone. And what are those composed of? Those are composed of tissues, and tissues are, in a general sense, are composed of cells. So what are cells composed of? Cells are composed of molecular structure, right? So what's happening? We're getting more refined, smaller and smaller, going in deeper and deeper into the nature of our body, right? From the organs to the tissues to the cells to the molecules. What are molecules made out of? Molecules are made out of atoms. These are very big generalizations. Yeah. Well, what are atoms made out of? Atoms are made out of subatomic particles, we could say. Well, what are those made out of? If we keep going, what are those made out of? Those have their origin, and again, my apologies for using a new presentation program. Those components have their origin in what I want to call natural intelligence, nature's intelligence, or mind. Because at each one of those levels, there's intelligence operating, whether it's at the physical level, the gross manifest level, or the organ body part level, or the tissue level, the cellular level. And what I wanted to show you was a slide which illustrates this as an example. This is a slide borrowed from a physics presentation. And basically what it shows is that in the understanding of physics, quantum physics, which tries to understand our physical universe that we can see and perceive either with our senses or an electron microscope, that the material world is made up in layers. And this diagram on the left, which shows matter, is a scientist's illustration of how matter is structured in layers. And as it gets subtler and subtler, more subtle, it becomes smaller and finer until it finally gets down to what we were describing. Just as we use the body as an analogy, this is a perfect example where it goes from the gross physical matter to finer levels. And just similarly, the chair that you're sitting on right now is made up of plastic or leather or metal. And what are those components made of? We can do the same thing, which is to break it down to smaller and smaller levels. The plastic in your chair is made of molecules. The molecules are made up of atoms. The atoms are made up of subatomic particles. The graph on the left shows that subatomic particles ultimately break down into smaller particles and force fields, which structure those particles, how they go together. And all the particles and all the force fields come together in nothingness, which is really incredible. They come together in what is referred to as the unified field, superunification. But this field is a field of no matter, yet it gives rise to all matter and structures how it operates. This field, this unified field, is what's referred to as omnipresent, unmanifest, gives rise to all manifest form. 1 cubic centimeter of space, of emptiness, has more energy than all the known matter in the universe, just to give you an example. So like that, our mind is structured in layers. And so here, our mind is also structured in layers where at the surface level, we have articulated thought, we have abstract thought, we have fine feeling, and we have pure consciousness, which is the source of mind. And so when we want to, there we go. Okay, thank you. So when we understand how the body and the mind work together, we have to understand that at the basis of who we are is intelligence, yeah, and energy, which is mind. It's an abstract, non-material field, which gives rise to all matter at different levels, yeah. So, and again, I ask you to bear with me. Really, the diagram that I wanted to show you, I took you through steps of going from organs to tissues to cells to molecules to atoms, because most often in the West, we think that the body, having a body, is what gives rise to our mind. We have to have a physical body to have consciousness, when in fact it's the other way around. That intelligence or energy, consciousness, whatever, all those words are interchangeable, actually give rise and structure all the higher levels of ourselves, from the subatomic particles to the atoms to the molecules to the cells. At each one of these levels, we see intelligence operating. We see energy operating. We see structure operating. And so really what we want to understand about all this is, and what we're going to get to how the body self-heals, is that mind or consciousness, intelligence, is the software that empowers and structures, makes possible the physical body. That's why these two are intimately linked. Each particle, each object in a physical creation, to some greater or lesser extent, exhibits intelligence, whether it's the molecules in the plastic handle of your chair, or whether it's the total sum of all the molecular structure in a cell, of which there are several trillion in your body, or whether it's the function of, on a more manifest level, of your liver, which performs roughly 500 functions all the time for your body. They're all exhibiting some degree of intelligence. The body, your system, your entirety has a huge amount of this intelligence because it's so complex. And all of this intelligence as a sum is referred to, both in Eastern and Western medicines, alternative and conventional, as the innate intelligence. This is the intelligence, the sum intelligence that enables you to be you. And it's in this intelligence that we find some very wonderful characteristics. This total sum of intelligence has the ability to perceive itself in its entirety, which makes it a holistic aspect, because it has to operate at all these different levels. That's why I wanted to draw that diagram for you, that innate intelligence just isn't about your intellectual intelligence. It's about all the intelligence that goes into mind, all the intelligence that goes into operating all the different functions of the body. This innate intelligence runs every dimension of who we are, from the subtlest physical to the grossest manifest. And within that intelligence, it has, in order to maintain itself, it must be self-aware. It has to know what's going on at any given time. And this is how it maintains itself. Everyone is familiar with the term homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body's ability to stay in balance. So the innate intelligence is constantly monitoring itself in a holistic way. It's measuring, monitoring every dimension of itself all the time. And it's diagnosing itself all the time. Do I have enough water? Is this cell still healthy? What chemistry do I have to emit to keep myself in balance? Is this the time of the month when I'm getting ready to reproduce? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting enough nutrient? Oh, this cell function is out of balance. I need to organize this area. So the innate is constantly diagnosing itself. And when it finds something that's out of balance, it structures rebalance of that area. This is an important concept because when we're talking about health, and all of us are faced with our health right now with COVID-19, and we're very aware of that. And I think it's really important that we understand and be able to manage our health. We should understand that your body's intelligence is fully capable of managing its own health. And because it is holistic, when it does diagnose, it's not limited to a particular dimension of itself. When you go to a doctor, whether it's a Western medical doctor or whether you go to an acupuncturist or a chiropractor, they all have a discipline that they are looking at your body through because that's their training. If you go to a chiropractor, they're very much aware of the structural aspect component of the body. If you're going to a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, they're looking at you through the window of element theory. If you go to a cranial sacral therapist, they're looking at the structure of the head. Yeah? Each of these are valid, but the body's intelligence, your innate intelligence, isn't trained in a discipline. Rather, it is all these disciplines. And these disciplines are just facets, like facets on a diamond, that look at certain dimensions of this incredibly complex system that you are. So when the innate intelligence is looking at itself, it's looking at itself in one complete holographic unit. And it sees all these different structures as they interrelate to one another and as they're functioning together or not functioning together. So when innate intelligence diagnoses itself, it's looking at the big picture all at one time. All the dimensions that we have in disciplines of medicine, it's considering all at one time. And in its efforts to keep homeostasis, it's going to affect each of these areas depending on the need as it perceives it. So this is how the body maintains itself. And when we look at children, for example, a fresh body without too much stress, children's bodies are extreme. They're full of energy. They recover quickly. They're very healthy looking skin, tissue is very, very healthy. This is because the innate system is fully operational. It's not obstructed. It is fully self-aware. So what do we mean by self-aware? The innate intelligence that operates in us has to know what's going on at all times. Yeah? And it does this through channels by which it is self-aware. And I'm going to just describe a few of the physical, obvious channels that it's self-aware. So one of the channels that your innate functions through is your nervous system, your central nervous system, the brain and the central nervous system. And all of you are familiar with this. If you're sitting in a movie theater and your legs are crossed, or you're living at a concert and your legs are crossed, your foot falls asleep, what's happened? The channel of communication and that dimension of the body is no longer working. So if I were, God forbid, but if I were to come by trying to get through to the next seat and stepped on your foot, you wouldn't know that I'd stepped on your foot, right? Until you uncrossed your legs, nerve flow came back, channel open again, and then it's like, oh, my foot is killing me. What happened, right? So the body has to be aware in order for it to respond. Oh, sorry, not the body, the innate intelligence. Yeah? If you don't know there's a problem, you're not going to respond to it. Another channel of communication is the endocrine system, and these govern hormonal function within the body, which is huge. It governs our metabolism, reproduction, etc. Tremendous amount of information transmitted chemically through the body. Meridian channels come from Eastern medicines, both Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. These are subtle channels, very similar to the central nervous system, but they emit from the organs of the body. They're essentially fiber optic cable, except they're organic, and transmit energy from the organs, the major central organs, to and from within the body. And then there are energies in the body. Each part of the body, whether it's a cell or a major organ or a major body part or the brain, especially heart, brain, and gut, emit energy. And you're all familiar with this. I mean, we're warm bodies. This is infrared. The cells are generating heat as they run themselves. This is a type of energy. From Eastern medicines, we know the concept of Wei Qi, and this is just an energy that the body produces. And there are different levels of this Qi which act to facilitate information to the body mind. And there are multiple fields which are beyond the scope of this presentation to talk about. All these channels enable the body to be, enable your innate in your body to be self-aware. So the question then is, why aren't we in perfect health? If the principle is that the body's innate does this great job of running things, if it can maintain itself and balance itself and diagnose itself, why aren't we in perfect health? The answer is that there's a disconnect between mind, intelligence, and matter. There's a disconnect between the software that runs the body and the physical hardware. In the Eastern sciences, their concept is that all ill health, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, comes from the separation of deeper consciousness, deeper mind, from our material existence. When those two are joined back together, health is restored. However, we're a very complex system, and there are, as we saw, there are multiple channels facilitating the operation of this system. Now, I used a simple one in the nervous system, but this is true on multiple levels of our system. Remember that diagram I had of organs, tissues, cells, etc.? All of those levels have to have communication within themselves and upper and lower levels within themselves. They're all integrated into one whole, yeah? And they all have to be talking to each other. When they don't, when there's a disconnect, this is when the body doesn't know that there's something wrong. Just like you don't know when there's something wrong with your foot because you can't tell, right? So various things can cause this kind of disconnect in our system. Some of it happens in utero. We inherit genetic traits from our family. This would refer to the DNA aspect of who we are. The DNA is that blueprint on a molecular level and deeper, but we'll just keep it on the molecular. It's a code. It's a series. It's a coding, yeah, which informs each cell what it's going to do. And this is always one of the miracles of the body, that cells somehow have the intelligence to go from one cell to 2 cells to 4 cells, and then becomes a human being with trillions of cells. Each of those cells knows where to go: lungs, heart, liver, organ. As it's doing that, the DNA is coding each cell. Once the body's structured, that coding goes on, right? Unless something gets in between the information and the structure, right? Communication. And this is what we see in our bodies after a certain time. After a certain period of time, the body starts to age. And this is largely because several things, there are many things, but one of this is because interference with the transfer of information, communication from the DNA to the RNA. Other things that affect the communication channels happen in growing up. When you're 8 years old, the idea of jumping off the roof of a house to see if you can fly seems like a good idea. But if you crash and hurt yourself, you recover, but something has been altered in the body. A damaged meridian, a traumatized nerve. So we physically can damage the body. Also, to keep on the example of an 8-year-old, I'm thinking of 8-year-old boys, you put things in your mouth, right? That you don't think, well, this seems like a good idea. Here's a grub. I'll try what this tastes like. And we put chemicals into our system, which can alter the body's function, the liver, the kidneys, other parts of it. After 18, 20 years, the body has received a lot of stress in various forms: chemical, emotional, physical, not to mention the effects, as I said before, of the genetic influence, because we really are, modern genetics really understands and has shown many times that who we are is a product of our ancestors. All these things combined create disconnects at multiple levels within the system, where the body is maintaining itself, but not fully aware. So if in order to, and this is the reason that we age, there's a lack of awareness of the body's innate intelligence to manage itself. So for example, if part of our system is not digesting food properly, and this has happened over years of time, because maybe we ate the wrong things, or maybe because part of the central nervous system is not monitoring our digestive tract correctly. Maybe we've consumed a lot of alcohol or other chemistries that alter the liver and its ability to process fats. And there gets to be, I'm just taking an example now, an accumulation of toxic material in the digestive tract. And your channels of communication that monitor that, not on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, are not aware of that. Well, this becomes then a breeding ground for other kinds of toxic element in your system. This is where bacteria grow. This is where viruses find their seat. In Ayurvedic medicine, they refer to this as ama. This is the toxic material that the cells either don't digest or can't digest, or don't digest on the gross level of the system. This gets into the whole body, and this provides like a breeding ground for bacteria and for viruses. So the body is not responding, and then we are exposed to something like a virus, and the immune system is already compromised because it's overwhelmed by this outbreak, something normally would have not provided a ground for in the first place. So one of the keys to managing our health is to manage our innate intelligence. Now, today and yesterday and today, you're going to hear from a lot of different practitioners who are going to offer you some really, really great methodologies and processes to maintain all of these are going to be managed by your innate intelligence. And the chief administrator for your innate intelligence is the brain. And when I'm referring to the brain, I'm primarily referring to the head brain. There are three brains, actually, in the body. There's the head brain, there's the heart brain, and the gut brain, the enteric brain in the intestines. And they all have similar, if not exactly alike, chemistries, molecular structures. They just operate differently for different purposes. For our purposes today, I'm just going to talk about the head brain primarily. The head brain is composed of multiple levels. Even just on the outer framework of the brain, the cortices, there are multiple levels, different lobes, frontal, parietal, temporal, prefrontal cortex. These are all just one dimension out of three of the brain. Then there's the mammalian brain and the reptilian brain, and each of these have a function to manage each of these levels within our system, from the most manifest of physical movement to the subtlest aspect of molecular structure in the body. The brain is very much like the conductor of an orchestra because it has all these multiple dimensions.
To extend the deadline for mailing ballots. All this has big implications.
Anyway, it manages all these different parts. Due to stress, the brain can become less organized. And you know this from your personal experience. When you're under stress, how organized can you be? You can be overloaded, overwhelmed. There's so many things to think about that you can't even deal with a few things. And on a physiological level, on a neurological level, the brain can get into that same condition. When it gets too much stress, too much demand, too much pressure, without support of the rest of the body, also if the body now is falling ill, then it can't manage, can't respond to utilize these qualities of the innate intelligence, to self-monitor, to be self-aware, to be diagnosing correctly. And one of the things that we can do, and I'm going to explain this at the end of the presentation, is that we can enable the brain to be more coherent. Coherent meaning that each part within itself is in better communication, and the different parts, there's a left and right hemisphere of our brain, that those parts on each side and within itself, they too are also in concert with each other. Think of a symphony orchestra. There are different parts of the orchestra. There's the strings, there's the percussion, there's the brass, and all of these parts are supposed to be in concert together, yeah, as one unified whole to make beautiful music. Yeah? But if they're working at a different rhythm, at a different pace, not together, it's a cacophony of not a good sound. And the brain works the same way. So if we can enable the brain to be more unified as a whole, more coherent, then the innate intelligence is better able to operate, to be able to diagnose, to be able to rebalance itself, to monitor what's going on. And this is I just threw this in here because this is a study that was published in the Journal of Neuroscience a long time ago, but it illustrates how when the brain, EEG coherence, and I'll just explain this quickly, EEG coherence is just the electrical activity of the brain. And they put little nodes on the head and they can monitor the brain waves and also measure how coherent those brain waves are between parts and between general categories of the brain. And when EEG coherence goes up, when each part is in sync with the other, there's a huge change in the way the brain operates. And in this example, they're showing how it affects intellectual mental function in terms of increasing moral reasoning, IQ, learning, etc., creativity. But my point is that when the brain becomes more coherent, then it's better able to manifest the qualities necessary to maintain good health. So when it does that, then the brain is able to manifest these qualities of the innate intelligence, which is holistically looking at the body, holistically looking at itself, and being able to manifest the ability to self-heal, because it's diagnosing the system, it's aware of the system. And it does this through the communication channels that it has. And by strengthening the coherence of the brain, these channels can become more active. And a coherent brain is fundamental to healthy function of the body-mind. So this summarizes what I wanted to share with you about your body, because today we're all faced with a huge health concern. And more than ever, it's important that we be able to manage our own health. Even just getting to the doctor, it's now a challenge, and our medical system is grossly overworked. And it's important that on a day-to-day level, we manage our health. Prevention, that old phrase, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Managing our inner intelligence, and through our inner intelligence, allowing the body's own inner doctor to take care of itself, is one of probably the most important thing we can do. So I just wanted to explain so that you understand that you have the ability to maintain your own health, the ability to self-heal, because it's already hardwired into your system through the innate intelligence. One of the things that we can do, just as a takeaway from all this, one of the things that we can do to facilitate a coherent brain is a technique called the Cortices technique, and I'm going to show this to you now for a few minutes, which enables the brain, facilitates greater coherence within the brain. And this technique was developed by Dr. John Veldheim, who is the founder of the discipline that I practice, which is Body Talk. And it organizes the different disparate parts of the brain to act as one unit. Sort of, Cortices technique is like inserting a conductor in the orchestra, so that they're not playing on their own, that they're all being conducted by one unit. And the way that it operates, the way that it works, is that it bridges the two halves of the brain, both on the cortices level, on the mammalian level, and on the reptilian level of the brain, to produce higher coherence in the brain. So if you're watching this, and I just want to say, this technique can be used as much as necessary. It's a tremendous technique for relieving stress, because a lot of times when we feel stressed, it's because the brain, the nervous system, is overloaded and it's starting to get incoherent. So in order to better handle stress, keep the system in balance, increase the intelligent, coherent functioning of the brain and the central nervous system. So I'll just explain briefly how to practice this technique. And like I said, you can do this at home. You can do it I was going to say you can do it anywhere, but it might look strange if you were doing it in a meeting, which we're not having generally. But you can do this anywhere, and you can do it as often as you like. If you're going into a stressful situation, if you're under stress, if you're sick, this is tremendous. If hopefully none of you listening today are affected by the virus, but if you are, it will facilitate the innate intelligence to be able to be aware of what's going on and mobilize more mechanisms within itself to bring the body back into health. So again, the concept is to unify the brain. And we use two hands to do this. One of your hands is going to act as a bridge between left and right hemisphere. And you start by placing one of your hands, can be your right or your left, on the rear lowest part of your head. So I'm placing my hand, hopefully you can see this, right here on the back of my head. Can everybody see that? This is your occipital lobe. This is the lower part of your brain. You're going to be holding this position, and just think of that hand as making a bridge between this side and this side. Center line right here, it wants to be right in the middle, so that you're bridging or arcing the left and the right. Your second hand is going to be used as a tapping mechanism. Now, tapping, many of you are familiar with it. Tapping is a technique that people use for different purposes. Tapping was not invented in the 21st century. It's a yogic technique. But we're going to use this hand to tap the brain on both sides of itself. So I'm not tapping like this on one side. I'm tapping with my hand so that some of the fingers are on the right and some are on the left. So when we're tapping, we're stimulating the brain, and the hand is stimulating the brain to link its left and right sides. So I'm going to be tapping, and then I'm going to be breathing. Okay, so as I'm tapping with my hand centered, I'm inhaling and exhaling. Typically, it's always better to inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. 2 or 3 breath cycles. And then I'm going to be tapping over the heart brain while I'm holding this same position, and then tapping over the gut brain. These are all triggering or stimulating these 3 elements of our neural function to be unified. Once I've done that through 3 cycles, then I'm going to move my hand a little bit higher, a hand width higher. So again, so that the hand is bridging the left and the right hemisphere in the back. Then I'm going to tap again. Inhaling, exhaling, tapping all 3 spots while I'm inhaling and exhaling, tapping, inhaling, exhaling. Then once I've done that, I'm going to move farther up again, a hand width higher up, tapping the head brain. And remember to keep your hand centered, not tapping like this, tapping over the head, so that your fingers are tapping left and right hemispheres, because the body can feel your hand that's arcing across here. So this is what is unifying this brain. And then we move the hand again farther up. We're tapping. You can tap right on top of the hand. Inhaling, exhaling till we get to the front, the prefrontal cortex area. Then we're tapping again over heart, over gut, breathing, tapping. The last position is we take our hands on the sides of our head like this. This is the temporal lobes of the brain. And this is a real important area because this controls our emotional state. So we hold this position for 2 or 3 seconds, and then we tap. 3 points on the brain. Yeah. So this is how to do Cortesie's technique, and it's a really great technique for students going into tests. It makes the brain clear, coherent. It's not going to happen instantly. It takes a few minutes for the body to reorganize. But this is the technique you can do at home, and it's a tremendously effective technique for mobilizing and reorganizing innate intelligence to function through the central nervous system. So I thank you for today, for your time. As I said, I was introduced earlier, but I work out of Lakewood at Quantum Health. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at this address. So thank you very much for your time. And it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Well, that was wonderful, John. Thank you so much. I love that Cortesie's technique. Do you have that on a PDF anywhere or something to kind of help us remember the technique?
Yeah, I can send a link to that. I don't have it right this minute.
Okay.
But I can send it to you if we wanted to post it somewhere.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. I love tapping, and that's a really good modality. And what you did today, though, is something I haven't seen done before, and I thought it was fantastic. So,
thank you, Sonia.
We will always have access to this video, so you can go back and review it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yes, I will send a link for that. Actually, there are links on YouTube as well, having this demonstration of how to do it, in exactly the same detail. So.
Well, thank you so much for, I mean, that was what I liked about your presentation. It was very detailed, but it did walk us through all of the different steps to get to that end result. So I found it very, very informative.
Thank you, Sonia.